Good morning, boys and girls. We are going to be reading another chapter of Black Beauty today, chapter 23, called A Strike for Liberty. So, who remembers what happened in our last chapter? Black Beauty went to a new home, right? He went to Earl's Hall, is the name of his new home. Now, how would you describe this place so far? Well, Mr. York, the person taking care of him, seems nice enough. He wants what's best for the horses, but he's making the horses wear these bearing reins or check reins that hold the horses' heads high. Who really wants that done? The lady of the house, the Earl of W's wife. She's the one who wants those horse heads so high, which is bad for the horses, but why does she want it done? Just because it was fashionable. That should not be a good reason for doing something, but that's why she wants it done, and everybody has to follow her orders. So let's read the next chapter, chapter 23. I'm going to present my screen so you can follow along. Now, one day, my lady came down later than usual, and the silk rustled more than usual. "Drive to the Duchess of B's," she said. There's another name that's been blocked off for some reason. And then after a pause, "Are you never going to get those horses' heads up, York? Raise them up at once and let us have no more of this humoring and nonsense." Well, they've already been getting used to their heads being higher and higher. Now she wants it to be even more. So York came to me first while the groom stood at Ginger's head. He drew my head back and fixed the reins so tight that it was almost intolerable. Then he went to Ginger. What do you think Ginger's going to do? She already said she was going to fight back if they were making her life too difficult. And who was impatiently jerking her head up and down against the bit. So she's moving it around, trying to make it difficult for them to make that check rein even higher, as was her way now. She had a good idea of what was coming. In the moment that York took her to shorten it, she took her opportunity and reared up on her hind legs so suddenly that York had his nose roughly hit and his hat knocked off. The groom was nearly thrown off his legs. At once, they both flew right to her head, but she was a match for them. We know this from her fight with Samson, right? And she went on plunging, rearing, and kicking in a most desperate manner. At last, she kicked right over the carriage pole and fell down after giving me a severe blow on my near quarter, right here on his bottom, kind of. Now, poor Ginger, she's doing everything she can to defend herself. Now, it probably would be better for her to have a temperament, kind of like Black Beauty's. But if you are in her position and she knows not only how uncomfortable this is, but how mean a lot of people can be as well, she's just not having it anymore. She thinks it's unfair. Now, there is no knowing what further mischief she might have done had not York promptly sat himself down flat on her head to prevent her struggling. So she is laying down and he's on her head, at the same time calling out, "Unbuckle the black horse, run for the winch and unscrew the carriage pole." He wants them to be separated so that Black Beauty doesn't get hurt anymore. "Cut the trace here, somebody, if you can't unhitch it." One of the footmen ran for the winch and another brought a knife from the house. Now the groom soon set me free from Ginger and the carriage and led me to my box. He just turned me in as I was and ran back to York. I was much excited, in a bad way, by what happened. And if I had ever been used to kick or rear, I am sure I should have done it then. But I never had. And there I stood, angry, sore in my leg, my head still strained up to the terret on the saddle, and no power to get it down. So he is still being strained up like this, even when he's just in his box. I was very miserable and felt much inclined to kick the first person who came near me. This is a new feeling for Black Beauty. So we know how bad this treatment is if even Black Beauty wants to kick somebody because he's so and he's in such pain. Not just uncomfortable, but pain. Before long, however, Ginger was led in by 2 grooms, a good deal knocked about and bruised. York came with her and gave his orders, and then came to look at me. In a moment, he let down my head. "Confound those check reins," he said to himself. "I thought we should have some mischief soon. Master will be sorely vexed. But there, if a woman's husband can't rule her, of course a servant can't. So I can't get to the Duchess's garden party? Well, I can't help it." So who does York blame for this? He blames the lady, Earl of W's wife. He doesn't blame the horses. He knows how bad it is for the horses. He's blaming the lady, that she is caring too much about the fashion of it, and she's making it so that these horses are starting to act up, and it's impossible for them to do their job. Now, York did not say this before the men. He always, and this is talking about the grooms who kind of work for him in the stables. He always spoke respectfully when they were by. Now he felt me all over and soon found the place above my hock where I had been kicked. And remember, Ginger just accidentally kicked him as she fell down. It was swelled and painful. He ordered it to be sponged with hot water, and then some lotion was put on. Lord W was much put out when he learned what had happened. He blamed York for giving way to his mistress, to which he replied that in future he would much prefer to receive his orders only from his lordship. But I think nothing came of it, for things went on the same just as before. I thought York might have stood up better for his horses, but perhaps I am no judge. Ginger was never put into the carriage again, but when she was well of her bruises, one of the Lord W's younger sons said he should like to have her. He was sure she would make a good hunter. As for me, I was obliged still to go in the carriage and had a fresh partner called Max. He had always been used to the tight rein. I asked him how it was that he bore it, which means how are you able to withstand this? "Well," he said, "I bear it because I must. But it is shortening my life." Wow, that's very severe. It's not just painful, but it's actually shortening his life, he says. And it will shorten yours too if you have to stick to it. "Do you think," I said, "that our masters know how bad it is for us?" "I can't say," he replied, "but the dealers and the horse doctors know it very well. I was at a dealer's once who was training me and another horse to go as a pair. He was getting our heads up, as he said, a little higher and a little higher every day. A gentleman who was there asked him why he did so. "Because," said he, "people won't buy them unless we do. The London people always want their horses to carry their heads high and to step high. Of course, it is very bad for the horses, but then it is good for trade. The horses soon wear up or get diseased, and they come for another pair. That," said Max, "is what he said in my hearing, and you can judge for yourself." So why do these horses wear the grain? Wear them? Because it's good for trading. So if they take these horses and they're trying to sell them, and somebody wants to have the check reins and these horses haven't been used to them, they're not going to end up purchasing those horses. So it's really for money. That's why people are doing it. And for fashion, like we've seen with the lady. Now, what I suffered with that rein for 4 long months in my lady's carriage, it would be hard to describe, but I am quite sure that, had it lasted much longer, either my health or my temper would have given way. Before that, I never knew what it was to foam at the mouth. But now the action of the sharp bit on my tongue and jaw, and the constrained position of my head and throat, always caused me to froth at the mouth more or less. Some people think it very fine to see this. That's weird. They think it's a good thing to see horses foaming, which means something's uncomfortable and painful. That kind of goes back to the devil's trademark, right? Of enjoying something that is bringing people pain, like that boy Bill did for the pony jumping over the fence, trying to jump over the fence and also taking the wings off the flies. Some people think it's fine to see it like this, though, and they say, "What fine-spirited creatures!" But it is just as unnatural for horses as for men to foam at the mouth. It is a sure sign of some discomfort, and it should be attended to. Besides this, there is a pressure on my windpipe, which often made my breathing very uncomfortable. That is terrible for any creature to have a hard time breathing. Now, when I returned from my work, my neck and chest were strained and painful. My mouth and tongue were tender, and I felt worn and depressed. In my old home, I always knew that John and my master were my friends. But here, although in many ways I was well treated, I had no friend. York might have known, and very likely did know, how that rain harassed me. But I suppose he took it as a matter of course that it could not be helped. At any rate, nothing was done to relieve me. So this poor Max, he has just gotten used to this being the way of life, even though he realizes he is going to probably die sooner than he otherwise would because he's doing these things that are bad for his health. So that is chapter 23. You've got some notes to take on it, it's really sad to hear these stories, but it's good to learn how, for these horses, but also for people who are suffering, we need to be so careful about our actions and make sure that we're not doing things for the wrong motives. Lessons that we're going to see over and over again in some of the next chapters coming up too. Okay, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.